What's the most money you ever made in any year?
3-month period, 6
Okay.
million.
Okay. How'd you feel?
I actually didn't really feel it. It was honestly quite depressing.
You were saying that state of consciousness, though, is tied to the state you're in.
But I saved $600 million in 6 minutes.
Ego is how people navigate the world. So you're saying you give them a better way.
No, I bypass the mind. It's the mind that's causing the problems.
Welcome to LA.
Thanks,
How
man.
are you?
Great to be here. Ineffable. You heard that word?
Ineffable?
Ineffable.
I haven't. Tell me.
It
Oh,
means
ineffable.
ineffable.
Okay. I thought you were saying, I just had Antonio Brown at the house, who's an NFL basketball player. With your Canadian accent, I thought you said NFL football. I was like, oh, maybe you saw Antonio and you like him. Because I was like, you're Canadian. So you're a hockey guy?
Actually, football. I did do football 9
Really?
years. Yeah.
American football?
American football.
What position?
Quarterback on
Oh.
running plays and running back.
Yeah.
and with
In
running
high
plays.
school, college, or where?
High school, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got into door-to-door sales at 14, so after a couple of years of that, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go the Trump route, not the athlete route.
Okay.
So that was the end of my football career, but I could have went. I don't say that to brag or anything,
Yeah.
but I could have went if I wanted.
So you're pretty good?
I was, yeah.
God,
I was
good. Football's a tough American football. I was in New Zealand and these rugby guys were like, "Oh, you American are so weak because you have to have padding, and our rugby players just play without padding." I'm like, "No, that's because the biggest guy in the entire rugby league of any country in the world is smaller than the linemen that line up in NFL football." These are like two rhinoceros hitting each other. You have to put pads on. The fact that Americans need pads just shows you how big. I mean, some of these dudes are 6'6", so that's 200 centimeters, 160 kilos, and can run like a 40-yard dash in faster than any Olympian could 30 years ago at any weight.
That's wild.
Yeah. Mass,
Big boys.
velocity, acceleration, destruction. So, sports to business. Do you ever regret it? Do you ever wish you had stayed with sports?
Not once.
Not once.
Not once. No, it would have been fun for sure.
Yeah.
But no.
What's the most money you ever made in any year?
3-month period, 6 million.
Okay. How'd you feel?
I actually didn't really feel it. It was honestly quite depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were already desensitized to money?
Yeah, I'd done decently well, like since I was young, but growing up poor, the goal was always, well, if I get, I'm gonna be happy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you figured out like that doesn't equate.
So let's say, do you think money, you give your answer, I'll give mine. Do you think money makes you happy?
No, your consciousness does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your consciousness makes. So do you think somebody with no money, struggling, can still be happy?
No, because their state of consciousness, that level,
Yeah.
where they wouldn't be happy, also includes the poverty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for me, will money make you happy? Money, you have 4 things you need to solve in life. Money solves 2.5 of them. So you have health, physical health, wealth, financial wealth, love, social romance, and then happiness, which is your emotional state, right? Money solves 2.5 of those. Money, if you have money, obviously that solves your financial wealth problems. Health is about half money. People don't want to admit that. In general, you go to any country in the world, and there's one prediction you can make. People with no money die young, die younger than they should. They can't afford good food. They can't sleep enough. And health and wealth go tightly together. So I would say half of health is money. And then love, money can't buy you love, but money can keep you from a divorce. The number one cause of divorce in America is not cheating. It's running out of money. And when a man runs out of money, there's an unconscious switch in 90% of women's brains, and this has been documented over and over, that she gets an ick. And that's why when a man goes bankrupt, one of the first thing that generally happens is his wife leaves him. And you might say that's because something wrong with women, but that's an inbuilt instinct. Loss of financial status is quickly correlates with a woman leaving you. Now, do all women leave you? No. But if we look at patterns, this is a pattern. So, and then happiness, I don't think, I think half of happiness is having free time and not having pressure. Half of it is, and money buys you that. So 1 plus a half plus a half plus a half is 2.5. So out of the 4 things you need, if you get money, 2.5 of your problems will be gone. You still got to solve the 1.5 without money. But nothing else except money gets you 2.5 out of 4. There's no other one thing. If you get jacked and get a 6-pack, that doesn't solve 2.5 out of your 4 life problems. You can still be poor and have a 6-pack.
Your state of consciousness solves 100%.
Solve all. Yeah, but you were saying, so to play devil's advocate, you were saying that state of consciousness, though, is tied to the state you're in. So if you're broke, your state of consciousness is kind of broken.
Yeah, it's a symptom.
Yeah.
It's a symptom of a low state of consciousness.
Right. So you're saying don't solve the symptom, which is money.
Get to the cause.
Fix your consciousness, and by fixing your consciousness, the money will fix itself.
That's one of the symptoms, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you're in alignment with everything, I mean, the ideas come and you have the energy and, like.
So what gets a man watching? He's struggling in life, or maybe he's winning, but he feels like something's off. How does a man fix his consciousness?
That's an awesome question. I can tell you the way I did it.
Sure.
And I'll also give you, I'm sure you heard of Neville Goddard.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite quote from him is, "Man's chief delusion is that there's causes outside of our own state of consciousness."
Okay.
So with that framework, how do you raise your consciousness? I know for me, I did a lot of different modalities, tried to change it behaviorally, and it never worked. It never held, right? Like I would hold it for a few days, whatever, and then I'd be back at my home vibration,
Okay.
right? Which was like my anchor, which was the very core trauma that I created when I was actually in the womb.
Okay.
But everyone has it, usually almost always before the age of reason.
Okay.
So before we have the intellect, that a neurological trauma happens, and that's what keeps us at our home vibration. Okay. So for me, that was 125. That was like, no matter what I did, I could push through that. I could go to a Tony Robbins seminar, get pumped up. A few days later, I'm at 125. So Dr. Hawkins' consciousness scale.
Yes.
That wrote Power versus Force.
Yeah.
0 to 1,000.
Okay.
20 being shame, 75 anger, 100 fear, all the way up to 700 plus, which is enlightenment. Okay. So at 125, the level of desire, I had all these addictions: money, women, alcohol, travel, like whatever, to give me a little dopamine hit, right? To attempt to raise my consciousness, but it didn't work. So the only thing that actually worked for me that I could tell you was working with my partner, Don. So Don, we met 4 years ago. I went through his process. We call it instant and permanent enlightenment. Okay. So I went from 125 to 2 hours later in 1 second, going to 700. And then he just gave me a simple exercise daily to hold that, which I'll be the first one to admit. That was the first thing I didn't do a few times, just to see how powerful I was and if I really need to do this silly exercise, right? He calls it divine focus. But when I didn't do it, all of a sudden, a few weeks later, I'm back in the ego energy, and I'm going for the alcohol and the weed and the whatever. So that's what worked for me, and that's what now.
So what number are you at now? 0 to 100, 1,000.
I know it's over 700.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it get assessed on a monthly basis?
I've tested it. You can test it with a muscle test. So I've tested it, and it's going to depend on the.
Oh, you do a muscle testing thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that doesn't Scientology do something similar? Do they have muscle testing?
I don't know.
I know there's some different schools of thought where I was at like the Scientology museum once, and I think they have like a thing, like an energy thing.
I've been there before, and I did try that device that you're talking about, but that's not what I'm talking
So when you got this, when you're like all of a sudden, okay, I was here, now I'm here. What's the most
Yeah.
practical things that changed in your life?
So immediately I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore.
Okay.
The weed addiction, I haven't had it for a few years since I'd done it, right? So that went away, which for me, that was like 8 years of almost daily smoking weed, okay?
Okay.
So that was a major shift.
Yeah.
I was 30 years of age at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember that very night, I was just ready to have children.
Mm.
Well, what I uncovered was this like deep phobia of having children. So, I always thought, I want to have them one day or whatever. But no, I was like, all my fears were gone and I was ready to have children.
Huh. Do you have kids now?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. 3-year-old daughter and 3-year young, sorry.
Yeah.
3-year young daughter and one on the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And also that's another, I couldn't keep a relationship before.
Okay.
Okay. So either they would cheat on me or I would cheat on them.
Mm.
Or one of us would find a way to run away or just not commit or whatever. So my whole life was like that until I went through the process. Now I was ready to actually like build a family. So that was practically, overnight. Financially, I could hold on to it, and there was things coming out of nowhere, seemingly, that practically changed for me too.
Now, what is the exercise that you do daily?
It's a daily focus.
Okay.
So some would confuse it if I just tell you as a meditation, but it's not. The difference with the meditation is that you're tuning into this high level of vibration, this state that you felt in the process in that second. Okay. He has a double sound technique that he uses, and boom, you're in this state of enlightenment. And so you recall that feeling and you just soak in that vibration to make the neurocellular muscle strong, to really hold it in. And like I said, a few times, that was the first thing to go, right? Because you got to do it right when you wake up, middle of the day, and we're talking 10 minutes, not a big deal. And one before.
So how many times? You do it 3 times a day?
3 times a day.
30 minutes total.
30 minutes total. That's the minimum, right? I go for longer now, but that's the minimum. And I noticed the first thing that the ego does when he comes in and try to get you back down to those lower states, it's like, oh, dude, you got so much going on now. Everything opened up. You don't have to do that middle of the day one,
Right.
And the next thing you do is
So
do
you
it one a
missing
day.
one, you notice a difference?
Oh yeah, for sure. But it would start with one, and now I was doing it one a day, and then I wasn't doing it at all, right? Ego's telling me, oh, you've done it for months straight, dude. Like you're locked in. You don't need to do this anymore. And then so then I stopped, and this all happened like unconsciously. A few weeks later, I'm off drinking, and it was obvious to notice, right? But then I just got back right back on it. But I had a couple major falls. You don't have to do that, but my ego was so strong and I was so stubborn. Like I wanted to find my own way. I've always been an entrepreneur. I didn't want to follow someone else's path. All that came up for me. But since I've done it, since I've held it.
So now are you on a mission to spread this?
100%. Yeah.
So did you build it in kind of a community, a system?
Built out a community.
Yeah.
So there's 2 programs. He does the one-on-one for the big influencers. And we offer no upfront cost and a percentage of whatever opens up of an increase, like any major deals that come in within the next year.
Right.
That's the one-on-one. And then because he's worked with 8 billionaires, a lot of professional athletes, the group one is for the masses. So we dialed that in for him to do it a couple times a week on Zoom. And we just finished creating the whole community, whole blockchain system for people to join in on that. And that's $100 a month subscription. So anyone can get it.
So do you believe locations have a number, 1 to 1,000?
Yeah.
Like cities? So
Yeah,
what's
100%.
Dubai? You live in Dubai.
Yeah.
What's on an enlightenment scale? Where's Dubai fit?
I should have tested and checked into it, but I know it's, I would say somewhere in the 200s. Okay. So not the highest for sure.
Right, but not the worst.
But not the worst.
So what do you think's the highest vibration consciousness city in the world? Or one of the higher ones? Give a few.
Now, I haven't been to India.
Yes.
but if I was to read into it,
Yeah.
okay, that would be one of the higher places. There's some symptoms that you could look at, but we're still talking.
You mean like the Himalayas or something of
Yes.
India, something like that? Okay.
Yes. And we're talking probably on average in the 400s somewhere, okay, which is extremely high. Like that's like max.
What about in a Western world, like in LA, Miami, a New York, a Chicago, a London, a Berlin, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil? What do you think in kind of this side of the world? What do you think?
Slightly below 200.
What do you think's the lowest vibration city you've ever been to?
I hate to call anyone out, but it'd have to be somewhere in like not.
You could say it out of constructive criticism.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you're saying they can't improve, but
Yeah.
what's the place that really needs to improve?
First one that comes is Thailand.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. What's the reason? All the tourism there to exploit the people,
just
kind of.
Degeneracy, like
Yeah.
and just like
So outside. So it's not actually Thailand. It's outsiders coming.
true.
Tourism.
It would be
Yeah.
exactly.
Did you live in Thailand some?
I passed through. I never stayed
Yeah.
too long. Or like for example, a Pattaya.
Yeah.
Okay, something like that.
Yeah. So just like a party city. It's like hookers and blow.
Just straight hookers and blow.
Yeah. I haven't been to Thailand for long. I popped in for a couple of days on my way to Australia this year, but yeah, I wonder do you need to put out that'd be a good blog post on your website.
Yeah,
It's like people I'd have city guides that I give out on the best cities for entrepreneurs. And if you had a city guide for people who are, wanting to know where to live. I tell people the 4 biggest decisions you have to make in life. Number 1, who you have a job with.
Yeah.
Number 2, the career you choose, how to make your money. Number 3, who you listen to. If you listen to the wrong people, wrong mentors, you get way off track. And the 4th is where you live, the physical location. Cities have vibes, cities have energies to them, and humans are super affected by geography. I was just in Sweden in winter. Everybody's starting to get depressed because the sun's only up for 4 hours a day. The sun goes down at 3 o'clock. 3:30 is dark, 10 to 3. And you come to LA now and it's like winter time and it's hot. I can take my shirt off and get a tan. And it definitely reflects, it has a big impact on how you see the world, worldview, happiness, energy levels, I tell people chase the sun. My grandma was an atheist, but she said, Tai, if I ever would believe any religion, I would be an Egyptian because they worship the sun, and the sun's the energy for everything. The second the sun stops hitting us with enough heat units, everything ends. Everything ends. So what's next for you? What's the future? Can you get to 1,000 on this index of consciousness? Is that a goal of yours? How to get to 999.99?
It is a goal, actually. There's states beyond it.
There's states beyond 1,000? I thought 1,000 is the highest.
There's a chart beyond the chart.
So does that mean you're dead and you're in another universe?
I haven't figured that one out yet. I've been calling in like what can be the highest consciousness.
Who is the highest consciousness person you think? Who's the highest conscious person on this earth that everybody would know? Not somebody that you know, but like that's a well-known figure. Who do you think?
The first one that comes is like an Eckhart Tolle who I'd put in the 600s.
Okay. So you think the highest public figure is an Eckhart Tolle? You brought up India. What about Sadhguru?
He would be right up there too. Yeah.
In the 600s. But you don't think passing the 700s?
I would have to tune into him more, but yeah.
So it's rare to find somebody in the 800s. What about a celebrity? Think any regular mainstream celebrities? What about the Kardashians? What about Donald Trump? What about, that world? What about Taylor Swift? Justin Bieber, one of your Canadians.
Yeah. If you look at the symptoms, you can see, what they're, and you mentioned a whole different bunch of people, but many of the symptoms that many of who you just mentioned are is ego energy under 200. It just is.
So are you saying if you're high on ego, then you automatically score under 200, basically? If you don't have the ego under control?
Yes, the ego energy is up to 200.
But what do you consider ego energy? Because, Sigmund Freud is kind of the big guy who put forward this word of ego. No one really used ego much before Sigmund Freud. And he had, the three-part brain, the triune brain. You had, in German, it has the Ich, which means the I, which is the ego. That's your perception of the world. Then you have another that you're born with called the id, or the instincts, right? Your base instincts. Children are afraid of snakes, for example. Children are afraid of heights. That's a built-in instinct. Then you have what's called the superego, or he called it in German the Über-Ich, which means the I that's from society. So society looks down on you and says, no, go to church on Sundays. No, do this. And when you don't do it, you feel guilty. So when we talk about the ego, is that your self-perception, or do you mean it? Because the words change over time. In the modern world, when people say ego now, they kind of mean like the I'm the best, I'm better than you vibe. How do you define ego?
That would be the positive ego, which you just mentioned. So there's the negative ego, there's the positive ego, but both of them are toxic energy.
Okay.
It's just darkness. It's you outside of your connection to who you truly are, which is divinity or light.
Okay.
Okay, so enlightenment is your true natural state. That's who you are. And the ego is what separates you from that light.
Okay.
So under 200, that's all fear-based, externally referenced, toxic dark energy. And that's where all the symptoms come from. 400 is where the intellect maxes out. So 499, right? That's the level of logic and reason, and that's where it maxes out.
So that's Albert Einstein was a 499, maybe.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking was a 499.
They're in
the great thinkers, Leonardo da Vinci. And then above that is spiritual enlightenment, when you get above 499?
500 is love, true unconditional love. 600 is peace, and 700 and above is an enlightenment, your true natural state.
But where's the level of intuition? Like Steve Jobs, that billionaire founder of Apple, he said he went to India. One of the things he learned is that people in India don't go so much by logic, they use their gut feeling. And so he came back. He said, let's make simple products, simple iPhones. We'll make the screen simpler. Let's not clutter things with our logic. Let's just make something that's a beautiful experience. And he created the iPhone. Over 2 billion have been sold, first $1 trillion company in the world. I mean, also Sigmund Freud said in matters that are small, use logic. In matters that are large, use your intuition. So do you think, where does intuition fit on the 1 to 1,000 scale?
It's high. I would put it at least at 500.
Okay.
At least at 500. Because that's and again, in the state of enlightenment, you're always in that intuitive rightness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes in that spiritual state.
It does, yeah. It's part of your light. It's a gift. It's a natural gift of your divinity.
Yeah. Why don't you? So let's do this.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce your mentor?
Yeah.
And I think you're the guy to do it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, the best place to introduce Don is like how I met him, and the backstory on that. So it was 8 years ago. We were in the same place in Vancouver.
Okay.
He's originally from a small island in Prince Edward Island in Canada. But we were in the same place at the same time. There was 2 mentors I had. They were financial mentors in Vancouver.
Okay.
Mega entrepreneurs. And both of them said that this Don Smith was their mentor.
Okay.
So now I was like, well, I want to meet the mentor's mentor, right? And one of them brought me over to Don's house. We had a group gathering, and he had just this most magnificent house I'd ever been in. It was on this cliff on the ocean of Vancouver. It was like waves could splash into the bedroom wall, which was all glass, like just wild, right? But aside from all of that, what I truly saw in Don was this bright light that unconsciously I was searching, like drawn to and searching for, because that's the time when I was smoking weed every day. I was doing well in business, but I couldn't even feel the financial hits, didn't matter how many girlfriends I had, couldn't feel that anymore. And so I was deeply depressed, even though on the outside I had all the external stuff that people thought they'd wanted. And so I was drawn to that, and it took me 4 years before I actually went through his process.
Okay.
And there's a couple things that didn't line up that almost did, and just didn't work out. And he was also only working with these top CEOs. It was, if you wanted a group session with him, it was 125 grand. He was doing one-on-ones for $1 million. We're talking like a couple hours. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll find another way. Anyways, 4 years later, COVID happens.
Mm-hmm.
All my travel stuff gets shut down.
Right.
Now I'm sitting there and I'm in my shit and I got nowhere to go, right?
Yeah.
And a Facebook, and he doesn't even use Facebook. So it was someone on his team put it on my Facebook wall, and I got to call Don. We'd never had like a phone call together. We just met briefly at his house that one time. And I call him, I say, Don, we have to meet. He said, well, when are you in Vancouver next? I was down in Cabo. And I said, let me check if the airport's still open, So I hung up the phone, looked at the next flight out. There was one stopping in LA and going to Vancouver. That was on a Friday. It was Sunday. So I called him back. I said, Don, I got a flight for Sunday. No questions asked. I didn't ask him how he does his process, blah, blah, blah. I was in LAX on the stopover, and I asked him one question on my way. I said, Don, how can I prepare for this? And he said, don't sleep.
Okay.
Don't sleep. I'm thinking like maybe he'll tell me to read something, like, I was doing all the personal development, 16 years of that intellect stuff. He's like, don't sleep. I'm like, okay. So I stayed up all night. I said, I'm landing, what time, or sorry, when can we meet? I thought he would say somewhere in the week. He said, well, what time do you land? I said 11. He said, how about 12? Okay. So had a buddy pick me up at the airport. We went to Whole Foods parking lot where we met Don. And I said, okay, can my friend come? Nope. Okay. The next thing you know, we were on this cliff in West Vancouver with a camera guy. And I hadn't slept all night. And he just pulls out his notepad. He goes, can I ask you a few questions? I'm like, okay, let's go. And it was, an hour and a half later, roughly, that just poof, like
Change your life.
all my shit was gone.
Yeah.
And I was wow. Just wow. In the state now I know, which is enlightenment. And it was.
Well, we got to meet you now. Wait, this is the best intro ever. Make sure people intro on me on stage exactly like that. Well, it's nice to meet you.
Likewise, bud.
That was quite an intro. So let me ask you this.
You can ask me anything you want.
Was there a mentor behind you? You're the mentor. Was there a mentor behind the mentor?
I had a mentor for 2 years when I was in doing neurolinguistic programming.
Okay.
And the instructor, him and I just hit it off.
Okay.
And so that I had a mentor there, but after that it was like, I was my own.
So how did this system come about? I mean, you've got your own kind of way of reaching this over 700. Was it trial and error?
1,000% trial and error, using me as the guinea pig.
Okay.
I was my
But
own
how long did
guinea
it take
pig.
to kick in where you're like, now I figured it out?
Well, that was based on results.
Okay.
I was measuring results and how long it took and all of those kind of things, and then working through all of the resistance things that were going on, and how to get around and circle around, that kind of thing. So, I don't have time on that. Like,
But it was like a decade, or was it like a year?
Well, okay. So what are we? December 31st.
Yeah.
Is 45 years since I had a drink.
Oh, wow.
And
You
it-
used to struggle with alcoholism?
yep.
Okay.
And 50 years since I smoked on that anniversary. Okay, so that's when I was sitting in my kitchen. I was at a Christmas party.
Yeah.
Okay, just to give you a little taste of
Yeah.
my me.
Yeah.
And my wife was with me, and she's, come on, Don, you're making such a fool of yourself. Like, come on, let's go. I said, nope, not leaving this till this liquor's gone.
Hmm.
And anyway, got into a major fight on the way home, driving and smashing in her, and she's hitting me, and all of that. We get home, and my two beautiful children, Shelley and Trevor, and it was like the next morning I'm sitting at the kitchen table. My neighbor, I knew he had a shotgun in the garage. I'm thinking, okay, how can I get that and blow this effing head off so I don't have to fucking do this anymore?
Hmm.
So that was that was about as low as you can get.
Yeah.
And that's when I ended up going to AA. Started that. That's where I started the journey of what the personal development industry.
Yeah.
And then I was never satisfied. Like that. No, that's not right. That's not working. And I was my own driver. I kept driving, and Jamie talked about a billionaire. Just to give you a little taste.
Yeah.
There's a billionaire's name is Tim. I can't give you the last name. And he knew a billionaire that I'll give you the two stories to give you an idea. And he had 5 addictions: alcohol, drugs, food, gambling, and sex.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of a messy divorce. And he had so much panic that he hadn't flown his private jet for 6 months.
Okay.
Okay? He knew this other billionaire that I work with that I saved $600 million in 6 minutes.
Mm.
Okay? And he called him. He said, I'll set it up with Don for you. So he flew out to, he was in Toronto. He flew out to Vancouver. And that was about an hour. All addictions were gone.
Mm.
He got back with his wife. And 15 months later, there was still no trace of any addictions.
Hmm.
Okay. The other one, the guy that did it, referred me. He had it was Research in Motion. It's a BlackBerry phone. I don't know if you're familiar with
Research in Motion. Yeah.
Yeah. So once, like this billionaire, he signed over everyone that was at the high level. And there's 64, Don. You do it. And I was working with, that's what I did. I worked with them. Anyway, what had happened was he had authorized a check that morning to be written for $1.2 billion to get out of a lawsuit.
Cool.
Okay? Now, he already worked with me, so he knew me. He knew my style. He knew what I could do. He knew how powerful I was. He knew all of that. And he called me. He was in Toronto. I was in Vancouver. And he called me and says, told me the situation. I said, how much time do I have to change this, Jim? I got to be back in the meeting in 8 minutes. I said, okay, you ready? And just once again, he knew my style. Boom, 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 boom. 6 minutes later, we were done. He walked back into the meeting. We're not doing it that way. We're doing it this way. That 6-minute phone call saved him $600 million.
Hmm.
That's what I do.
Hmm.
But I'm going to tell you one that's recent, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
It's got nothing to do with business.
Yeah.
Jamie and I had a friend that we knew, and he got a call.
Okay.
This was, what day was this? This is
3 or 4 days ago.
3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah.
Said, yeah, the doctor just said, my mom's in the hospital. She's dying of cancer. And it looks like she's got at best 3 weeks to live. Can you help? I said, yeah, okay. So here she is in the hospital. Okay? So we go. Now, this is just last week. Last week. So I go, walk into the hospital, and I told the son, don't you effing interfere with what I'm doing.
Mm.
And here she is. She had just been told that she had 3 weeks to live. And she had all of this tubes and like everything. And I said to her husband, don't interfere. Said that to the son. And I just started rattling. Okay? And it took, what was it, Jamie? I'm time. Yeah, it was 2 hours. That's what it was. 2 hours start to finish. And I left. Okay? The next day, now she was told she had 3 weeks to live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The next day, she walked around. She hadn't been out of bed. She couldn't move. And she walked around the floor she was on 4 times. Okay? That just happened last week.
So is that the power of the mind then, over even the body?
No. I bypass the mind. It's the mind that's causing the problems.
Okay.
So I have to bypass all of that, neurologically and cellularly. And so what I do is I just have a rapid way of asking questions to get to the root cause. And I'm telling you, here's a lady that's, she can hardly breathe, she can hardly move and all of this. And I'm just saying, okay, now you give me these answers. And I just, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so you're a victim. I see. So you've been a victim your whole life. You're a people pleaser. You never stood up for yourself. And all of this is showing up in your cancer. That's your cancer cause. Do you want to continue doing that? Look at where it's gotten you. So what do you want to do about this? Do you want to live or do you want to die? Because you got that choice right now. And she said, I'll do whatever you have to do, Dawn. I want to live. I want to live with my son. I want to stay alive for my husband. I said, okay. Now you do what I say. You answer my questions. And I just went, okay, got it? You ready?
Yeah.
And then I just put it all in an emotional bubble, went, boom.
Yeah.
All gone.
But what is it for most people? Is it victimhood? Is it their ego? Like,
It's all ego.
What's the common?
It's all ego.
It's all ego.
Everything is ego, other than you being in your divine light.
But how does so ego is how people navigate the world. So you're saying you give them a better way. So where does the divine come from? Is this religious? Is this like the concept of Jesus, Muhammad, or
they are forms? They are forms of divine creatures. Okay. And everybody has it, but they're covered with ego energy and they can't access it. Okay. The chatter, the talking, la la la, you're going to get hurt. You can't watch that, and all of that. So I have to bypass that to get to the root cause, because they don't know the root cause. They haven't got a clue. There is no connection. They just don't know that.
But is it usually childhood trauma in your
Always.
opinion?
And almost always before the age of reason.
So is this in the womb or between 1 to 5 kind of thing?
No, they're all different. Everybody's different. And womb or 1 to 5, whatever. But what I've created a neurocellular process that I bypass the intellect. So I'm not listening to the bullshit chatter of the ego. Okay. And I bypass all of that. Then I trace it neurologically. And then there is this big, we'll call it a boil.
Okay.
A boil-like energy.
Okay.
And it's holding all of that in there. Okay. And so I trace it.
Okay.
And so we were in the hospital here, just like, when was that, Jamie? Like 5 days ago or something? Yeah. And the doctor came in and he was saying, yeah, I'm going to give you fentanyl and all of this poisonous shit that's going on, because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to treat it.
Right.
And but I'm peppering her with these questions, found out what it was, and I said, okay, Carol, decide, live or die. Tell me. Make your decision. I haven't got time for this bullshit. Is it yes or no? Live or die? I want to live. I said, you do exactly what I say. And I went, got her sitting on the boil, okay, energetically, sitting on the boil. I said, are you finished, Carol? Excuse my language, fucking around? With your life? Being a people pleaser? Never doing anything you want, but doing everything others want? Are you finished or not? Yes or no? I'm finished. Good. You ready? Boom. It was done. 1 second.
Have you ever met somebody who wanted it, who couldn't get that experience?
Well, that's the ego, and all that is tougher. It's tougher for me to get around, but they always give me enough information, enough ammunition that I catch them. Yes, I work with the biggest egos on the planet. Okay? So yeah, it's harder with somebody with a big ego. However, I have perfected this process that I get around, and I get them to eat their own snake. Okay? And they decide then. Then they give me the permission I need to blow it out of the water.
So when you say the biggest egos of the heart, is it the
biggest
politicians? You were saying
God.
you work with, is it the politicians? Is it the billionaires? Who do you find has the biggest ego?
Well, everybody that's got this drivenness,
Yeah.
that's ego.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can look at the Donald Trumps, and it's awesome what he's doing now. Okay, but he's had that ego, like everybody knows that, and whether it's like pro athletes, like I work with 15 different sports, either professional or amateur or Olympians.
Right. Is the ego they have also the cause of their success, so that if you get rid of it, you get rid of their ability to be high performers?
Yeah, if I did it the way you just described it.
Yes.
But I replace it.
Okay. So you get whatever drive they have, you put in a better drive.
No, an invincible drive, not better. Way better than better.
Okay.
Okay, and it's automatic. Now remember, I said neurological and cellular, not intellectual.
Right.
So there's no thought. I rewire the nervous system so that it's automatic. They step on the ice and they're gone. Now here's an example of an athlete, because they're easy to measure. And what I do is I get them to I extract their very best game they ever had.
Yeah.
Then their worst game they ever had.
Yes.
And then what I do is, okay, you get to decide. You get to decide which is it going to be. So then they decide. And then what I do is I realign everything. And it's automatic. There's no thought. That ego is the thinking. But I bypass that. And so the crazy stories, like Jerome McGinley, he was the captain of the Calgary Flames, NHL. Okay? They hadn't been in the playoffs for 7 years.
Okay.
7.
Yeah.
Okay? I work with him. Okay? That year, he won the Maurice Richard Trophy with most goals and took his Flames to within 2 games of winning the Stanley Cup. One player.
Yeah. You should have worked with the whole team.
Well, that's the best.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Ty, but what I'm saying is not everyone's ready, and I'll only work with somebody that's ready. Only.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess around arguing arm wrestling with, I just, no.
Yeah. Phil Jackson, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's the American coach of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And
first of all, yes.
Yeah. Lamar Odom was here this weekend, who played under Phil Jackson. And he said I was talking to him about high performance, and he had a coach, Phil Jackson, who got them out of their ego and got them into, used his type of meditation and things like that. Do you think that what you teach, because like Tony Robbins is someone who kind of changed my life at the very beginning. Tony Robbins has a system which is obviously not the same as yours, but he talks on subjects like this. How does your system differ from somebody like a Tony Robbins or a Phil Jackson?
Well, first of all, I stay out of the intellect. I stay away from the mind,
Okay.
where Tony uses the mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just blow that out, and what I love about athletes, it's a little more difficult with executives because it's not as clear. But I extract the very best game they ever had. Like I believe it's 23 questions that I have.
Okay.
And I just all the way down, la 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 la.
Yeah.
That's their best game they ever had,
Yes.
their worst game they ever had, and then their average one.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is this kind of muscle test you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I'll get them to stand in each zone. And I'm telling you, these pro athletes, like all of this, I can put their arm down like this with one finger. That's how much power they're giving away.
Wow.
Okay? Then I give them the do you want to change this?
Right.
Are you willing to let this go? Is this working for you or destroying you?
Yes.
Get all those answers. Like they make all the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Said, okay, you ready? Yes or no? And then I'll just go right for the jugular. And then I just go, boom. And it all pops and it's like, oh my God, what just happened? What? I what? Like they're just shocked. But a pleasant shock.
So it's almost like in a moment in time, it's almost like Jesus Christ said, unless a man's born again. Are they almost like
they are born again, bud?
Yeah.
They are. And I trace it all the way back. And most times, now everyone has the trauma.
Yes.
There's no escaping.
Yes.
Okay? And I trace it back, and almost exclusively, it's sometime in the womb.
Really? But what is
with
it?
no conscious thought.
But is it with the mom arguing with the dad? Is it the mom's emotional state?
Can I give you a recent story?
Sure.
Okay. So here's this lady. She called me up. Don, need to talk to you. Okay. She had been in my program before.
Okay.
But she was always in her head and wasn't picking it up. So her name was Amy. Was it Amy, right? Yeah. And so I said, okay, you ready? And I instantly took her and she went back. And this is first of all, an awesome question.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. There's so many going to relate to this. And I have to give you credit. Okay. So here we are. I'm tracing her. I'm getting her to trace all the way back. And here she is. She is now. I know there's a lot of people have difficulty with this, but I'm telling you that. Said, oh my God. Now I see it. Dad wanted a boy, and I'm a girl. And she never, ever in her whole 61, was it 61 years, I think? Somewhere in that vicinity. Never had her body rested. Because it was all, I'm not good enough. I don't fit in.
So it's almost generational trauma.
Well, it is yeah.
Or in the womb.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful. My mom always says, careful what you say to your kids even before they're born.
And that's where many of them have their trauma.
Yeah.
Their root cause that creates all these crazy stories.
Yeah.
Because they sabotage it all.
Yes.
But it's all subconscious. No awareness whatsoever.
Yes.
Okay? So I took it and then I rewrite history right there at the spot. Only it's her rewriting history,
Yes.
not the father or anyone else.
Yeah.
Okay. And then and this is all on tape, all video. It was all videoed, every bit of it. Okay. And just like the lady with the cancer, that was all videoed, word for word, how it all happened. But coming back to Amy.
Yeah.
Okay. And she said, "Oh my God, Don, my chronic back pain's gone.
Mm.
Oh, my migraine headache's gone."
Yes.
I'm talking like 2 minutes after it was finished.
Yeah, things manifest all over.
Yeah.
Yes. And in
Yep.
multiple ways.
Yeah.
But I go after the root cause, not a cause, not like I pick, okay, I'm going to look at these books to find, no.
Yeah.
No, it's that one right there.
Right.
That's how fast I can pick it up. Just give me some language and I got it.
Huh.
And then I'll just go, okay, you keeping this or you want to let it go?
Yeah.
And if they say yes, I said, okay, you ready? Boom. And I did that just the other day with this lady that was given 3 days, or was it 3? No. How many days to live? 3? Yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
3 weeks left.
Yeah. And here she is, like tubes and things. I said, okay. And that's when I said to these guys, don't you mess with me.
Yeah.
Okay, Carol, are you ready or not? You finish this fucking around?
Yeah.
Dying? Now, yes or no? She said, I'm in. And I walked out. It was all done.
Yeah, I always tell people, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When you're ready, the healer appears. So let me ask you this.
I don't heal. You do the healing.
IamDivinity.io. So I'm going to put that in the show notes, but we'll put a pop-up right here. IamDivinity.io. And so that's the place that they can begin their journey